All right, welcome to the Talent Cast. It's bots, and more bots, but maybe not bots. We'll see. In our interesting experiment of talking to people who are not me, and maybe getting some actual brains into this conversation, these podcasts, I've invited my friend Chris Murdock, who is going to talk about bots, I think we haven't actually done this conversation yet. That conversation is gonna mosey. It's gonna wander all around. So we'll see where it goes. So we'll be right back. Welcome to the Talent Cast, the world's most caffeinated employer brand and recruiting podcast. I'm your host, James Ellis. Thanks so much for listening. If this is your first time for joining in, we do things a little differently. We try and do deep dives. There's not a lot of interviews here. There's not a lot of news here. This is about how do we get smarter and better. And that means how do I get you smarter and better? How do I get you to think about these problems at a deeper level so that you can solve them and look like a genius to your boss? If this isn't the first time you've been here, thanks so much for returning. Feel free to share with your friends, your coworkers, your boss. I don't know. We really do appreciate that. All right, let's get into it. All right, James Ellis here. Housekeeping, blah, blah, blah. Go to @the War for Talent on Twitter. Go to thetalentcast.com, employerbrand.consulting, yada, yada, yada. Do the stuff. Anyway, so I'd like to introduce my guest this week, this semi-week. I don't know what it's called. We try to do this every other week. This is Chris Murdock. He is the co-founder and chief sourcing officer at a little company called IQ Talent Partners out of Atlanta.
Nope, Nashville.
Nashville. Whoa, why did I think Atlanta? I don't know why I thought that. The South is all the same to me now that I'm gone. I'm not there anymore. It's all one big broad, not Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
as long as you didn't confuse us with Florida, I draw the line at Florida.
Yeah, that's insulting. I'd stop the recording altogether and just apologize profusely. Nashville, thank you. So let's just go ahead and start with this. So first off, hey Chris.
How's it going, man?
It's my usual rocky start, so welcome.
Yeah, well, my dad, he's from Indiana, but he's lived all over the world. Was in the Navy for 34 years, and he's got this thing where he just says, I'm busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. I'm sure it's not PC, but I do feel that way. This week has been insane. Are you concerned for people who have asses or don't have asses? I'm not sure for whom you might be No, I'm more worried about
that.
the one-legged people.
But you got to imagine that would be really busy. That would be really busy.
It would be.
It's not to denigrate anyone. It's simply to say, look, it's going to take you a little bit more work, and that's going to make you busier.
Yeah, and any time you have a 3-day weekend, you end up doing 5 days worth of work in 4. So
right? Oh my goodness, yes.
That I've just been playing catch up.
Yeah. But this probably isn't the conversation we wanted to have. So let us jump into the meat of the matter. So for those of you who listen, this isn't an interview. This isn't planned conversation. I have one thing I'm going to start off with, and it just goes where it goes. So I'm going to start with this one. We met a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, at Sherm Talent in Nashville. I guess that's why you were there. You're a Nashville person. There you go.
Correct.
And we had a great conversation about bots and
AI in general.
Yeah, I tend to just call bots, it's the umbrella term for anything that is machine learning and AI and does the work for me stuff. So the conversation was, we came from the same idea from two different directions, and that was this idea of, you talk about bots and you complain about, everybody talks about bots and AI as this function, or these vendors talk about bots and AI as this means of lowering headcount, which scares the crap out of people, right? Recruiters are like, oh my God, you're going to get me fired.
It creates animosity right from the get-go. And the thing is, when you say it's going to reduce your headcount, when you say it's going to do that, some of the recruiters that you have left are going to be using that tool. But if you're instantly putting all of the recruiters on blast that their job might go away because something's going to get automated, there's still going to be a recruiter here. But now all of a sudden, the recruiters that are going to use your tool are going to want to use it.
Yeah.
You're creating animosity. I don't mind if they say we're going to be able to reduce costs and make you more efficient. That's fine. The end result might end up being that some of the roles go away, but also some of the roles are going to morph. Just because you're leveraging AI doesn't mean you can't have you won't have recruiters. You won't have sourcers. You might have coordinators. You just might not have schedulers anymore. The roles are going to change. The roles are going to morph. And could one of the outcomes be fewer heads? Yes. But if you are pushing and starting and leading with, I want to help get rid of your recruiters, recruiters still have to use the tool, and the recruiters are instantly going to not use it. They're going to be on the defensive.
But that's marketing and advertising, right? I'm trying to sell this incredibly complicated, vague, messy idea called AI or bots to recruitment leaders, and they don't understand it. They don't know what to do with it. They've been to the conferences and they've heard it's a thing. It's sexy. You should buy some. And they don't have an encapsulated, hey, this is a quick reason why. And if you focus on headcount, it's an easy way for them to go to the CHRO and say, here's how we save money by spending money. But of course, that's great, but they're never going to use that tool. The recruiters are the ones who get to use that tool. So you're actually setting up friction automatically. You're trying to you're sparking a fight between the recruiters and the tools to sell the tool, which I think puts vendors at a disadvantage.
And we already have a problem with tool adoption within companies. I used to have to do kind of a tools roadshow because I needed the tool, all these resources that we had at Yahoo, for example. Mm-hmm. I had all these great resources, some of which I actually used with corporate development. There were some tools like Capital IQ, which is robust, very expensive, and I wanted to keep it. And so I would have to go out and say, hey, don't forget, we have this tool, we have this tool, we have this tool. I would go to people's desks. Hey, did you do your, mm-hmm. I heard you're working on this project. Did you use Capital IQ to build out a list of target companies? They'd say no. I say let's do it. Let's get it. Because if people weren't using the tool, we were going to lose it. It's use it or lose it. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if your CFO is taking a look and you spend $100,000 on a resource and it's not getting used, that's going to go away. Yeah. And it's going to be $100,000 wasted because the recruiters are like, if I use this, it's going to put me out of work.
And you've actually put yourself in a bad position where you've said, look, don't invest in recruiting because they don't know how to use the tools. They don't know how to do change management. They don't know how to embrace new ways of thinking about problems. Adding more tools or processes, it gets rejected. And so don't bother. Go and just buy another body or something.
Yeah, and you have this. We've even seen the same. We've seen the same mentality with a sourcer. When you have, when a sourcer comes into an organization, there are plenty of recruiters that are lone wolves that would rather do it themselves. They feel threatened by, having to team up with or give credit to a sourcer. And if the sourcer is not being used, the sourcer is going to go away or is going to be realigned, and the business unit or the functional group, loses out on more effective, recruiting practices. So why are recruiters get so protective and defensive sometimes?
Oh yeah, I think that's an easy question to answer, and that is, if you compare recruiters to say sales. Sales gets to ask for things and people say, okay, how much money does it make us? And all the conversation around is, what is the value you're bringing to the table? How much sales are you going to make us? What's the ROI? What's the value of that thing? Recruiter asks for a candy bar or an extra glass of milk, and they say, what's it going to cost? Everything is about, we don't understand how recruiters add value. We can't measure how they add value, even though it's clear that they're adding value, but we don't know how to quantify that in such a way to compare them apples to oranges to sales. So we're going to focus on cost. So let's just lower the cost as much as possible. And that's the root cause to me of all problems in recruiting these days.
James.
Yes, sir.
I love you.
Well,
because you weren't expecting that.
I really wasn't.
No,
this is a very different podcast.
Okay, so it just one of the things is as part of our firm, we're one of the I'm not going to do a sales thing here, but we're one of the largest in-house recruiting functions around that anyone can just borrow. So we have 165 people. We are a leveraged model. And one of the things that we have to do as a third party, as any consultancy, you have to do this, I have to do this, you have to show your value. And so I think some of the in-house recruiting functions could learn from us. We know the value that we're providing, and not all the time is there a monetary ROI. Not all the time is there a time ROI. Time to fill is a good metric. Cost per hire can be a good metric.
Yeah, fuzzy.
It gets fuzzy. But how do you start measuring value? You measure it by impact. You measure it by the number of people, how quickly did you put a butt in the seat, and what are the ultimate downstream, knowing what the downstream effects are. It's very expensive to capture. Yeah. But we've got to figure out ways to turn recruiting into a value center versus just a cost center, because it's not a revenue generator directly. If you're placing a lot of engineers, over the long term, you can show some, maybe do the research, but the data's not there. Vendors out there listening, help us measure long-term recruiting value. When we put a butt in the seat, what is that person's long-term revenue impact? Salesperson's revenue impact, engineers' revenue impact. Figure that out for us. Do some magic. But
the
right
closest
now,
I can get is the savings. It's okay. If you don't have a butt in that seat, what's it costing you in lost income or lost sales? Okay, that you can quantify, but it's still, again, it's the wrong side of it. It's about savings instead of creation.
Yeah, and that's where we're creating value as recruiters. We're creating value as employment branding experts.
Yeah, because if it wasn't for us, if it wasn't for recruiters and it wasn't for employer brands, you couldn't hire anybody. Therefore, there would be no company. It's simple as that.
Yeah, and again, the thing is, on the value side, the reason these AI vendors, not all of them do this, but enough of them have actually made a lot of people very afraid of artificial intelligence and machine learning tools and bots, that rather than saying, they come at it from what you were just saying, that it's a cost. This is a cost savings. We're going to save you this. We're going to save you this. We're going to save you this. When in actuality, they're actually providing a lot of value. The AI tools are here for a reason. They're providing some value, and they just happen to have a sticker price on them. But
so do recruiters. It's just that we never think about the salary and the computer and the benefits as a sticker price. We just kind of swallow that.
But I'm not going to name names. There is a CEO of a.
Thank you for not naming names. I don't know where this is going, but right now, blanket thank you.
I'm not going to name names because we don't need anyone to sue you or me. But I actually had a conversation. I actually had a conversation with the CEO founder of an AI enabled tool, and I asked him. I said, "Why have you created this?" And he literally said, "I hate recruiters. I hate them. No. I think they're terrible." And I said, "Hold on there. I happen to be one. Maybe the chief sourcing officer, but whenever I need to, I put on my recruiter hat. And as a sourcer, I love tools. I'm a total tool. I'm the biggest tool you've ever met, dude. I am the biggest tool you've ever met."
Just gonna leave that there. Just
that's away. Fine. No, totally. Just teed that one up for you.
You're in joke. Thank you.
But this guy, and I said, "You do realize that recruiters are the ones that are using your tool?" And he was silent. Just silent. I said, "It's not an HR person using your tool."
Oh God, I hope not.
It's okay. There's another argument later. Another vent session. This is less of a debate, more of a vent session.
Yeah, exactly. This is no fight.
But no, so he ultimately, once I explained to him how actually he was creating a tool for recruiting. But not for recruiters. The problem he was trying to solve was get rid of bad recruiters. He didn't understand that there are good recruiters. He didn't understand the actual recruiting process, and yet he was building a tool for it.
Yeah, but so much of that stems from the fact that I've never seen another job or industry where the spectrum of good and bad in that job is as wide as it is in recruiting. I have met recruiters who I wonder how they get home at the end of the day. Like, did they get lost? Is there a string that leads them from their office to their house? Because there's just I can't fathom it. But I've met recruiters who are flipping geniuses at this stuff. I don't know any dumb pilots, and they're smart pilots, but I don't know any. That gap is much narrower in other jobs. In recruiters, it's up top and bottom all across the board. It's insane.
Well, I started IQ Talent 10 years ago. Technically 10 years ago this month. But legally, we weren't an entity until July, so because of paperwork.
Ease up, lawyers. Calm down.
Yeah,
he said legally, so it's okay.
We don't need any comments.
God, I wish.
You're like, I want people to have arguments.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, we were we picked up a client within a month. Within a month of my getting laid off from Yahoo, we had our first client. And when I would literally, this was May of 2009. We started reaching out to engineers, and I would literally spend the first 15 to 20 minutes talking about how I'm not like the other recruiters that they dealt with, and so I'd have to explain the difference between an in-house recruiter, a contingent recruiter, a retained recruiter, and then also the retainer, the contingent, retained and contingent hybrid, the container agreement.
Yeah.
I would literally spend 15 to 20 minutes, and then I would actually be able to like interview or try to talk the candidate into going to this client.
Yeah.
It was nuts, and they would, and some of them I'm still friends with. Like I'm friends with Facebook with some of these engineers I met in that first month.
Wow.
But it's because I wanted to build a relationship.
What? Are you kidding me? As a recruiter, you're supposed to build a relationship?
And that leads me into why I'm a big proponent of AI.
Okay.
AI is going to automate a lot of the tasks that would take me a long time to do. The research side of things. The research is never easy, but the tools now, the AI-enabled tools, the machine learning, the natural language processing, all of these things that are getting thrown into these tools. And yes, right now we have to use a lot of them, depending on the population, the geographic region, etc. But what it's doing is these tools are helping me find the right candidates faster so that I can spend more time building a relationship with the candidates, building a better relationship with the hiring manager, doing more, working on more recs. And because I'm able to be more efficient, be more targeted, and do what I really enjoy. I do enjoy the research.
Yeah.
But the research is getting easier, and the research has gotten easier, and it'll be 20 years this October, that I got into recruiting. And the research used to be a ruler and a book.
Yeah.
I would go down and I would scan through. I was the search engine. And I had natural language processing in my head. What's a wool buyer? Oh, hey, scarves are wool. And I would literally go down the list. It went from paper cuts and BS to now I can literally just type in a couple keywords, and the systems are smart enough to translate them into other terms that are tangential. So I don't have to do as much time on the research. I don't have to do as much time like weeding through resumes, reading through LinkedIn profiles, reading through Google results. These tools are pulling it all together so that I can actually have more time doing what I'm actually really good at, which is lying to candidates and forcing hiring managers to hire my candidates.
I knew it. So the trick I have with AI is that, okay, if you look at a non-AI enabled recruiting process right now, you go, okay, I'm going to do some sourcing, I'm going to do some research, I'm going to do some outreach, I'm going to develop a relationship, I'm going to make a pitch or a call to action, drive them to the action they have to take, funnel them through the phone screen, the interview, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You forgot scheduling.
You
forgot the back and forth, the endless back and forth to find a time that works.
Okay, valid. So if you apply AI, and the trick with AI is that it is a commodity, meaning I can buy it, you can buy it, my mom can buy it. I don't know why my mama buy it, but anybody can buy it. And anybody can apply this thinking and this process to a great recruiting process or to a flawed recruiting process, to a good recruiter, to a bad recruiter. It is a tool that everybody can use. And when you do that, it separates the good from the bad, because it suddenly realizes in a long, week-long process to go through this whole journey, and you take away the automated steps, what's left that's human? It's the relationship building one. It's the connections. And if you're a bad recruiter and you're bad at that, you've just released the grunt work, which is the thing you were okay at, because any idiot can be okay at that part of it. I know any idiot can do it because a bot just did it. But a great recruiter suddenly can build a lot more relationships, can build deeper relationships, can build them faster because the grunt work is taken off their plate. It's the separator between good and bad recruiters.
Yes, and funny that you mentioned that the making great recruiters even greater. When I saw the job for the research assistant at TMP Worldwide, this is when I moved after I graduated. This is my first job in recruiting. It was a research assistant. I had whiffed on sales jobs because I was a history major in college, and I literally sat down with Jeff Lemming, one of the name partners of Lemming Levan, which had just been acquired by TMP Worldwide. I started looking into what retained search was, what the executive recruiting industry was, and I really thought this was, having worked at Sears in the kids department, Dillard's in the kids department, through high school and college. I thought, well, hey, I know retail well enough, and I've been doing research at Vandy for the last 4 years. This is pretty interesting. And then I started to dig in, and I started to realize, if I'm going to come in and I'm going to do more than what the job description says, I'm going to make them so dang and efficient that they're going to be able to do better as a firm. And so when I sat down across from the named partner, I was finally prepared. I had been asked so many times, like, what do you want to do, be a teacher? And the answer was yes, but then I realized they don't make enough money.
No.
And I wanted to do more. And so I said, he actually asked me the question, he's like, did you go to school to be a teacher? And I said, yes. But then I realized I wanted to do more. I wanted to kind of get into sales, and actually I didn't even think of recruiting as an industry.
Yeah.
And I said, I see there's a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, and I think I'm the right person to come in and do more than what you're asking for. Yeah. My goal is to help you, close searches faster so you can do more searches in a year and make more money. He offered me the job that day.
Nice.
So and the thing is, that's what AI is trying to do for us.
Yeah.
It's trying to, take some of the stuff that's time consuming, take it off your plate so that you can do more and provide more of that value. And, it's interesting. A lot of people don't realize that, there is machine learning and AI behind LinkedIn Recruiter.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes the AI is hidden, and it's just being applied. It's being overlaid on top of something that you have historically used that what we didn't know was AI enabled.
Yeah. But that's like the joke about marketing. It's like no one hates marketing. They hate bad marketing. No one should hate machine learning. They should hate it when they can spot it, when they can see it, when like, oh, that seems like a weird response or a weird result. That's bad AI. That's bad machine learning. When it works like it's supposed to, you don't even notice it.
Yeah. And what's the Turing? Is that the Turing test?
The Turing test, if you're talking, so for those of you who don't know it, if you are talking to a computer, and I'm using lots of air quotes here because may not actually be talking. This is, because the Turing test was developed in the 50s. The idea that if you're talking to a computer and you can't tell that it's a computer or a human being, it is quote unquote past the Turing test. If it's undetectable that it's a machine rather than a person, that's how you know it's really good. So,
yes.
Okay, so when we talk about AI, the thing I keep getting hung up on is the John Henry problem. And that is, the folktale of the guy who was a digger and a miner, and the steam engine came, and he's like, I'm going to go dig. I can dig faster than a steam engine because I'm the greatest digger there was. And he effectively exhausted himself to death beating the steam engine. He won the race of digging the thing, whatever it was, but he died in the process. That presumes a straw man argument of you either get the human or you get the machine, but the truth is, as you started to say, there's the third option. That is, what happens if you put John Henry in the front of that machine and drives the machine? Someone who has all this experience of understanding how rock and dirt works, understanding what the needs of the engineers are, what the good size tunnel should be, when the tunnel doesn't seem strong enough, and what to do to fix it. What if you put that person in the driver's seat of a great machine? Isn't that what you really want?
Well, it's the cyborg approach. You're combining the best of one with the best of the other.
I feel like the John Henry in the steam engine is a safer, nicer version. The cyborg tends to recall kind of Schwarzenegger movies. So, but whatever you do, what you got to do.
Well, but I'm just saying it's when you start combining the best of both worlds, you start you can improve your process. You produce more value, and it just trickles down into so many different areas. Candidate experience is something everybody talks about. But you look at Glassdoor reviews, not all the time are they actioned on. But if you have a more effective and efficient recruiting process, your Glassdoor reviews are going to improve.
Yeah.
And the way you get to focus on that is by focusing less on scheduling and coordination. of interviews.
So is it a function of thinking about time? You have X number of hours in a day, a finite amount of time for any given recruiter or sourcer. The more you can focus their time on things that matter that computers can't do is how you think through this problem?
Yeah. I mean, we did a test here in the office with Calendly.
Okay.
And oh my God, just all of a sudden the group that was testing it out became so much more efficient. We had candidates going into process faster, sooner. I should say sooner. Mm-hmm. And the candidates weren't hanging while we were, exchanging 2 or 3 emails. Mm-hmm. What used to take 2 or 3 days potentially to coordinate a phone call or an on-site interview, now I have full glimpses into people's calendars, and it's being smart about telling me when and when someone's available and who should do it. And there's so much being automated and thought through. We're getting interviews scheduled in an hour with what would have taken 3 days or 4 days manually, trying to do all these things. So it's just, there's so many different little things out there that if you know that it's taking you too long to get a candidate into the process, look for ways to improve that. And sometimes it's just automating the scheduling, trusting the AI.
Yeah. So you've obviously tested and looked at a lot of these tools. So you don't sell one, so that's great. I feel very comfortable talking to you as an observer, as a user, not as a salesperson, because we don't do that here. If someone wanted to kind of put the toe in the water and say, look, this sounds really interesting. I'm terrified still kind of this. It takes over my life. It gets everybody fired, or whatever nightmare scenario a recruitment leader has in their head when they reject most of these ideas. How do you get started? Obviously we talked about scheduling because that's a pretty obvious one, but is that the best one to kind of dip your toe in and get started with, or are there other options?
I've always kind of felt that the coordination of calls, the scheduling, is probably the gateway. Mm-hmm. It's the one that's probably the fastest to deploy, and also it's because in most not every organization has the budget to have an actual scheduler on staff. Mm-hmm. A lot of times the recruiters and the sourcers are the ones that are doing that. So I think in those organizations that haven't invested. That have not invested in a scheduling function, they should take a look at those tools, those chatbots or AI tools that will assist with the scheduling. Yeah. I think if you already have a really well-oiled scheduling machine, that may not be where you want to start, but it could be, and then you convert some of those folks to sourcer, some of the schedulers to actual coordination specialists that specialize in creating a great candidate experience when the candidates come in, especially in high volume volume recruiting functions. Yeah. And then also convert some of those folks to sourcing. They know how candidates come in. They're around recruiters. This is a great way. I've always felt, and I still feel to this day, that schedulers and coordinators are great places to start, training and developing sourcing talent within an organization. Grow it. They're great.
So AI is a means of talent development in-house.
Yeah, then if you can now take people that all that institutional knowledge that some of the schedulers have, you're still going to need some manual scheduling. Yeah, there's still going to be people that are resistant to the tech. Within especially a large organization, you're going to have people that are just resistant to it, and in some cases, there needs to be a manual process because of technical difficulties. So you will still need to have that kind of talent in play. When you do have very strong, I think the other thing to look at would be internal discovery is another one. Why keep putting new people into the system when you already have maybe potentially tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people already in your database. Companies like Eightfold. I don't know if you're familiar with Eightfold.
I love it.
They started off as a sourcing platform, but then they moved into more of the internal discovery. Yeah. They're using the AI, machine learning, natural language processing to find the best people you already know. Yeah. And if you already know them, they've already got somewhat of a they've already got interest in your company.
They've got brand impression, positive brand impression. They've already understand they're semi-sold on the brand. They're halfway in the bag.
Yes. So why not use their technology to mine your own systems? Because the ATSs and the CRMs don't necessarily have, the natural language processing or the AI built into it.
Oh, I feel lucky when the ATS can parse things well, let alone actually process language. Let's set our bar at the appropriate level, sir.
Yes. Okay. Well, Eightfold does a great job of that. And then there's a company like Atypica. These were the two companies. I was the practitioner on a panel with two vendors. And Atypica will look at your internal data, internal resume databases, internal contact, candidate contact databases, and really promote diversity and inclusion hiring from within. It'll even find issues. It finds where the bottlenecks are. It'll tell you which hiring managers or interviewers tend to say no more to women than they do to men.
And the lawyers start to drool. That's terrifying because you've just opened the door for, because that now a lawyer might say, look, once you implement a tool like this, you can't say you didn't know that hiring manager X was a bit sexist or hiring manager Y was a bit racist.
If you're not capturing the data, you can honestly say you don't know. If you don't have the reporting tools that say this hiring manager, if it's a manual process, I'm going to guess that if there was a manual process for review, unless you know to
They'd
look,
never notice
you're
that.
not.
They'd never see that. Yeah,
but
because
this tool is going to help you alleviate that issue.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing is that most sexism or racism, or at least the kind I have encountered, if I can say that I've encountered it, it's much subtler than I'm never going to hire a black person or a woman. It's never, I've never really seen someone actually say that, but I've seen, those audience, the underrepresented, underserved audiences are the last ones left, and they just never get the benefit of the doubt, or they never get the bounce, or they never get the advantage, and so therefore they're the first one that fall off. And those are subtleties. You can't point to someone and say you keep leaving off women on the talent pools or the interview pools, but using data, you can identify those problems. My concern is now legal and HR can't pretend or say, I didn't know. They have to actually fix the problem. And now if you know that hiring manager X is racist or sexist,
you make the change. You make a change.
Yeah, but oh gosh, now you're opening up a can of worms to say, and this is not the conversation we thought we'd have, but you're opening up the can of worms to say, hey, hiring manager, you might be sexist and not know it. And the lawyers are going to go nuts on both sides of that one.
I think it's a little alarmist,
Sounds right.
A little extreme. Could that happen? Yes. But I think sometimes bias is not understood. Sometimes it's just they don't know. People are more likely to hire people like themselves. It's human nature.
Like.
Yes, and so it's why we have artificial bars, when it comes to GPA, top tier schools, having those types of things thrown in there. It's because companies typically are more inclined to hire people more like themselves, and when you do that, you typically find organizations that are predominantly one gender or one nationality, one ethnicity, and so you end up with you might have a company that it looks diverse, but when you start getting into the different groups, they're not. When you get into the individual groups, they're not.
Yeah.
But I think tools, AI can help us do better.
Yeah.
And I think we should come at it less because if you come at it from that alarmist view, well, the lawyers are going to have a field day. But the thing is, the lawyers would have the field day if we don't fix a problem. If all of a sudden something becomes a problem, we become aware of an issue and we don't fix it, then that's the problem.
Yeah.
But if we are using the tools the right way, if we're using AI, like Atypica is literally there to help you, find the diverse talent that's already engaged with your brand. They're also there to tell you how diverse candidates go through the process. Where do they fall out? Do they decline the offer? Do they just not get past this one person? Does this happen? You change the process so that those things don't happen again. And then what you do is you start training people on what implicit bias is. We have every new hire. And every so often, every time we have a new class come through our training program, we do a presentation on what implicit bias is. Yeah. And sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious, and we talk about the difference, and we talk about how to overcome it. And we typically start by saying, have you ever experienced bias?
Yeah.
We get people to start talking about things that they've experienced. And so then we start showing people, well, how do you think people have experienced this type of person has experienced their career? And so and we are really good at helping our clients identify, where some issues might be.
Yeah.
And we do it in such a way that's very tactful.
Yeah.
We're not saying, hey, you're stupid. We're saying, hey, maybe we should try this. This person's actually much more qualified. Why don't we move this person to interview? Let's back burner this person. This way we're getting the best people in front of the candidates or in front of our clients.
So let's flip the conversation a little bit more as we kind of close this up. No, I think this is, let's keep on the AI front. And then we started out, we talked a bit about how do you dip your toe in the water. What's the other side of that? I mean, I've seen tools that say or claim, I'll interview your candidates for you and give you judgments on how qualified they might be. And I'm like, hold the phone, folks. Because
Hold my beer.
What could go wrong? My big responses to that is, okay, so if you're going to build a bot to measure my ability to take an interview, I'm going to build a bot that interviews based on your criteria, and we're going to have bot fights.
Yeah. And those, actually, have you ever seen the bot fights, the AI conversations and how they turn?
Oh, no.
Oh,
Is
go
that like
on YouTube.
when you get Alexa to talk to Google?
Siri.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many of those videos and instances where it goes weird quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I think, again,
so what's the upper end of this stuff? What if you wanted to go total sci-fi and you want to just say, you want to blow your boss away and just say, look how cool we are and look how willing we are to change the rules and try new things. What's the upper extreme that you've seen that you'd be like, yeah, that may be a thing?
I think, look at the Amazon example.
The one where it calls the restaurant and makes a reservation for you?
No.
Okay.
No. Amazon created an AI algorithm to help them recruit engineers. Turns out they taught it bias. They noticed that they were high, that they were still not moving the needle when it came to diversity. And they realized, especially gender diversity, and it turns out that all the profiles that they used as like exemplars,
positive and negative examples,
they used dudes, only dudes, and so they taught this algorithm bias,
and it spits out nothing but Rick and Morty quotes, and they're like, wait a second, there's something wrong here.
And the next thing you know, but the thing was, they did put trust in it, but they had to verify. Trust but verify.
Oh,
so,
80s child. There we are.
There we go. Trust but verify. And my grandfather would be proud right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So they trusted it. They recognized, and they verified. They found that it was not working, and they figured out why. And
so what's the upper end?
To a point.
Okay.
So the upper end is understanding what AI is capable of now.
Yes.
And if somebody is selling you something that seems a little too far-fetched, but yet you're still willing to take a chance on it, like, seriously, the only way I would do an interview is if your interview process is 3 questions and there's a right answer to each one, that's fine. You can have people take you're essentially asking them to take an automated test.
Yeah.
You're not actually using an AI-enabled interview. It's just not to evaluate. You're looking for a right answer. That's not something AI. That's you can create an AI that says, oh, that's not the right answer. Oh, that's
not
the right
even
answer.
an AI. That's just a tree learning thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so if they're telling you that, if a company's telling you that, verify. Try it out. A lot of times, or look at an example. Ask them how it's powered. But if they're overselling, if you feel like you're being oversold to, that's the upper limit. If you don't really get the warm fuzzies from these vendors that are saying, "Yeah, we'll do it. We can do this."
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone doing interviews well. So if anyone's, I think that's an upper limit. Like, I don't think they're really doing full-on evaluations. They're doing matching for most likely a fit. Who might be a good culture fit, who might be a good skills fit, but everything there is clarified by might.
Yeah.
Like, It's not like a
But
certain.
that's true
this
of
person is a
every
coach.
assessment. That's true of every personality test. That's every, any of that
Yeah.
stuff is, it indicates it's likely that, it's very fuzzy stuff.
So again, that's where that trust, you take you do have to trust that the tool understands what you're looking for.
Yeah.
If you're trying to find an engineer who's a front end engineer, but the tool keeps spitting out Python folks, which is back end technology, something's wrong. But most of the time, the matching tools that are out there, it's what we used to call matching, smart matching. Now it's AI.
Yeah.
SaaS software used to be ASP. Like everything kind of changes and gets a new name every so often. But in this case, I think what we're doing is you have to look at what what the tool is actually capable of doing, and not overselling it, not being oversold to, and then not overselling it internally.
Yeah. So the answer is take a freaking breath, think it through, ask a good question or two, and don't just buy based on the sexy factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go. All right, Chris, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm thrilled you had a chance to kind of come up and hang out with us and do this thing, even though I know that's a weird process. But thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, hey, anytime. I'm really surprised what we've covered today and from where we started. It was actually a lot of fun.
That's my whole life. I never know. For those of nobody believes me when I say I really don't always know what I'm going to talk about. Like I have an idea of the direction or where I want to start. Nobody believes that this is the process, and then they do it with me. They're like, "You really just talk." I'm like, "Yep, that's all it is. That's all it is." If you're looking for Chris, that's IQ Talent Partners. Let's see. I'm not going to give your personal phone number away. You got a Twitter or something? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Actually, my email address, Chris, CHRIS, @IQTalentPartners.com.
So sign him up for all the newsletters you want, magazine subscriptions, whatnot. He loves this stuff. He told me that before the show.
It wouldn't be the first time. I'm also on Twitter. C Murdock is my handle. C Murdock is also my LinkedIn URL. So
gotcha. Fantastic. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for being a part of this. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for reviewing. I appreciate all that stuff. Keep that going. We had some crazy record months last 2 months, so thanks so much for listening. I love it. I appreciate it. I really do. If you have ideas or questions or thoughts on what the next show should be, or maybe, I don't know, what challenges we should talk about, holler at me. It's Twitter @TheWarForTalent or thetalentcast.com or all the different ways you can find me online. You know the answers by now. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Well, the music means you've made it to the end of another episode of the Talent Cast. If this was useful to you, do not keep it a secret. Share it with your team. Share it with your boss. Share it with your networks. I don't know. Share it with your mom. If you have questions you'd like me to answer on a future show, or just, general ideas about how to make this thing better, just ping me on Twitter. I'm at The War for Talent, @TheWarForTalent. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Do you love news about LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, and just about every other recruitment tech company out there?
Hell yeah. I'm Chad.
I'm Cheese.
We're the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
All the latest recruiting news and insights are on our show.
Dripping in snark and attitude.
Subscribe today wherever you listen to your podcasts.
We out.